Have you ever felt invisible in your own life? I have. For 5 long years, I was a secondary character in someone else's story, settling for crumbs of attention and convincing myself that it was love. My name is Eliza Cooper. I'm 28 years old, and this is the story of how I discovered that sometimes the worst betrayal isn't being cheated on, but cheating on yourself. In Los Angeles, the city of dreams and perfect appearances, I had everything a woman my age could desire: a successful doctor fiancé, an apartment in Beverly Hills, and a promising career as a corporate lawyer. But behind that perfect facade, I was slowly fading away. Daniel Morgan was the type of man every mom dreams of for her daughter. Charming, ambitious, with a bright future ahead. But he had a flaw. He only loved me when I fit into his plans. When I shined too brightly or demanded more space, I suddenly became an obstacle to be avoided. This is the story of how a hidden invitation became the key to my liberation, of how a gala ball revealed not only who my fiancé truly was, but above all, who I could become when I stopped making myself small to fit into someone else's plans. If you have ever felt small in a relationship that was supposed to help you grow, if you have ever doubted your worth because someone made you believe you weren't enough, this story is for you. Because sometimes we need to lose everything we thought we wanted to discover what we truly deserve. And I deserved much more than I was accepting. I never thought my life would change because of a poorly hidden letter among piles of bills on the kitchen counter. It was a typical Tuesday in September in Los Angeles, one of those days when the California sun promises that everything will be okay, even if your intuition whispers otherwise. I had arrived early from the office. A case I had been working on for weeks was finally resolved in my favor, and for the first time in a long time, I left work feeling like I had accomplished something important. I wanted to share that victory with Daniel, my fiancé of 3 years, maybe even suggest we celebrate with a special dinner. The apartment was silent. Daniel was still at the hospital, or at least that's what I assumed. As a resident in cardiovascular surgery, his hours were unpredictable, and I had become accustomed to having dinner alone more often than I would like to admit. It was when I started organizing the accumulated mail that I saw it. An elegant envelope with the gold crest of the Los Angeles Medical Association, slightly wrinkled and clearly hidden between utility bills and supermarket flyers. My heart started to beat faster when I saw my name on the envelope. Dr. Eliza Cooper, not Mr. and Mrs. Morgan, or Dr. Daniel Morgan and guest, just my name, on official letterhead. With trembling fingers, I opened the envelope and read the invitation twice before I could fully process it. The Los Angeles Medical Association has the honor of inviting Dr. Eliza Cooper to the annual gala ball in recognition of the young professionals who have made significant contributions in their respective fields. Dr. Cooper has been selected as one of the 30 under 30 professionals who are transforming LA. I read it again and again as if the words could vanish. I had been recognized, not as Daniel's fiancé, not as someone's +1, but as Eliza Cooper, the corporate lawyer who had just won a landmark case against a multinational corporation that exploited immigrant workers. But why was the invitation hidden? And why had Daniel never mentioned it? I grabbed my phone and called the hospital. "Hello, this is Eliza, Dr. Daniel Morgan's fiancé. Do you know if he's available for a quick call?" "Hello, Eliza. Dr. Morgan left an hour ago. He said he had an important commitment and wouldn't be back until tomorrow morning." An important commitment on a Tuesday night, without telling me. I slumped onto the beige leather sofa that Daniel had chosen. "More sophisticated," he said, when I suggested something with more color. I looked around the apartment. Everything reflected his taste. The neutral tones, the minimalist furniture, even the paintings on the walls were his decisions. When was the last time I expressed an opinion about our home and was actually heard? The invitation in my hand weighed more than it should. It was dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks during which Daniel could have told me about my honor, and chose not to. At 8 o'clock, he came home with that tired smile I knew well, carrying flowers, white geraniums, his favorites, not mine. "Hello, love," he said, kissing my forehead distractedly. "Sorry for the delay. Emergency at the hospital." "That's funny," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I called the hospital, and they told me you left an hour ago for an important commitment." I saw the exact moment panic crossed his eyes, quickly followed by that annoyance that came out when he was questioned. "Oh, right. I went to the hospital first, and then went to take care of some loose ends. You know, medical bureaucracy," he said, taking off his jacket and hanging it in the closet. "How was your day?" "Interesting," I replied, picking up the invitation from the table. "I found this among the mail. Do you have something to tell me about it?" Daniel stopped unbuttoning his shirt and looked at the paper in my hand. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes I had never seen before. Guilt. "Oh, that." He tried to sound nonchalant. "It arrived last week. I was going to tell you, but it arrived 2 weeks ago, Daniel. And why was it hidden under the bills?" He sighed, as if I were a child making unnecessary drama. "Eliza, you know what those events are like. Pure politics. I thought you'd be bored." "Bored?" "Daniel, I was selected as one of the most promising professionals in the city. This kind of recognition can change my career." "Exactly," he said, and his voice now had an uncomfortable edge. "And you know how important my reputation is at this point in my career. Those events are full of senior partners, investors, people who decide who gets into the cardio-pediatric surgery program at the children's hospital." I looked at him, trying to understand what he had just insinuated. "And what does that have to do with me?" "Eliza, you know you can sometimes be intense, especially when you're excited about work. And that case you won against Hartman Industries. Some of my colleagues didn't take kindly to it. That company sponsors several medical research projects. The reality hit me like a bucket of cold water." "Are you saying you hid my invitation because you're embarrassed by my work?" "It's not embarrassment, it's strategy. I have to think about my future, about our future." "Our future?" I laughed, but without a hint of humor. "Daniel, when was the last time you asked me what I want for our future? Or if my career matters too?" "Of course it matters. But we have to be realistic. I'm going to be a cardiovascular surgeon. That comes with a certain status, social commitments." "Social commitments?" I repeated quietly. "Like having a fiancé who doesn't cause problems." "Eliza, you're exaggerating." But I wasn't, and he knew it. Months ago, I had already noticed how he introduced me to his colleagues. Never as my fiancé, Eliza the lawyer. Always just as my fiancé, Eliza. As if my profession was something to be kept in the background. "When is the event?" I asked, looking at the invitation. "Saturday night." "Eliza, please, don't." "Don't what?" "Don't go to my own tribute. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Dr. Williams is going to be there, and he practically decides who gets in and who doesn't to the program. If he sees you talking about your controversial boo-boo cases..." "Controversial?" My voice rose. "Are you saying that helping hundreds of immigrant workers get a fair wage is controversial? For you, it's heroism. For them, it's bad press for business." I looked at the man I planned to marry in 6 months and had a terrifying revelation. I didn't recognize him. Or maybe, for the first time, I was seeing him clearly. "I'm going to the ball, Daniel. Eliza, I'm going because I deserve to be there. Because I've worked hard to get here. And I won't let you or anyone else make me feel like I have to hide." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "If you go, you'll go alone." His words hung in the air like a threat. But for the first time in years, instead of feeling hurt, I felt liberated. "Maybe," I said, folding the invitation and putting it in my purse. "Alone is exactly how I should go." That night, we slept in the same bed, but we might as well have been on different planets. Daniel turned his back on me. I lay staring at the ceiling, questioning not only the last 3 years of our relationship, but the last 3 years of my life. When did I start accepting being treated as an inconvenient accessory? When did I stop fighting for my place in my own story? The invitation in my purse seemed to throb with possibilities. Saturday night. 3 days to decide not only if I was going to attend, but who I was going to be when I got there. For the first time in a long time, the idea of being alone didn't scare me. In fact, it was starting to look a lot like freedom. I woke up the next morning with a mental clarity I hadn't felt in years. Daniel had already gone to the hospital, or at least that's what the note on the refrigerator said. Even written in his own handwriting, there was something cold and distant about it. Left early, back late. Think about what we talked about. Think about what we talked about. As if I were a stubborn child who would eventually see reason and behave as expected. I made my coffee. Not the strong espresso Daniel liked, but the sweet latte I adored and had stopped making to accommodate his taste. And I sat on the small terrace overlooking the Hollywood Hills. It was one of those perfect Los Angeles days, a completely blue sky without a cloud, and a gentle breeze that carried the scent of jasmine from the neighboring gardens. I took out my cell phone and called my best friend, Clara. "Eliza, what a nice surprise. How are you?" Clara and I had been friends since law school, but in the last 2 years, we had grown apart. Not because of fights or disagreements, but because little by little I had isolated myself from my social circle. Daniel always had an excuse not to accompany me to my friends' events, that they were too noisy, unprofessional, or simply not appropriate for someone in my position. "Clara, can I ask you a sincere question?" "Of course, always." "When was the last time you saw me genuinely happy?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Eliza, are you okay? Did something happen?" "Just answer, please," Clara sighed. "Honestly, I don't remember. In the last few years, every time we talk, it seems like you're playing a role, as if you're trying to convince me you're happy instead of actually being happy." Her words hurt because they were true. "And what do you really think about Daniel?" "Eliza." "Clara, I need to hear the truth." "Okay. I think Daniel is the type of man who needs to be the center of everything. And I think you got so used to orbiting around him that you forgot what it feels like to be at the center of your own life." My eyes filled with tears, but not of sadness, of relief. Finally, someone was saying out loud what I felt, but didn't know how to express. "Why are you asking me this?" Clara continued. I told her everything. The hidden envelope, Daniel's reaction, the veiled threat that if I went to the ball, I would have to go alone. "That son of a bitch!" Clara exploded. "Eliza, do you realize how manipulative that is? He literally hid your professional recognition because he didn't want you to shine brighter than him." "I know, it's just, we've invested so much time in this relationship. We're engaged. The wedding is in 6 months. Sunk cost fallacy," Clara said without hesitation. "Just because you've invested time in something doesn't mean you should keep investing in something that's clearly not working. What if he's right? What if I'm being selfish for insisting on going?" "Eliza Cooper," she said, using my full name, as she did in college when she wanted me to listen seriously. "Are you telling me that going to your own professional recognition ceremony is selfish?" And put that way, it sounded even more absurd. "You know what you're going to do?" Clara continued. "You're going to buy the most spectacular dress you can find. You're going to that ball, and you're going to show everyone, especially yourself, why you deserve to be there. And what if Daniel is right about the professional consequences? Then maybe he should have chosen a fiancé who shared his morally questionable values, instead of trying to turn you into something you're not." After hanging up, I sat on the terrace for almost another hour, watching the city wake up below. Cars rushing to important commitments, people chasing dreams, building lives that made sense to them. When was the last time I chased something I really wanted? At 10 in the morning, I was already on Rodeo Drive. Not because it was where Daniel thought I should buy clothes, but because today, I deserved something special. I deserved to feel incredible. The first store I entered was too conservative. Pretty dresses, but the kind that don't bother anyone, that don't attract too much attention. Exactly the kind of clothes I had been wearing at events with Daniel in recent years. "Can I help you?" asked the saleswoman. "I'm looking for a dress for a gala ball, something that makes me feel powerful." The saleswoman smiled. "What kind of event is it?" "I'm being recognized as one of the most influential young professionals in the city." "Congratulations. Then we need something that lives up to that accomplishment." I tried on several nice dresses, but none of them made me feel the way I wanted. They were all too safe, too. Correct. It was in the third store that I found it. A deep blue dress, almost navy, with silver embroidery that caught the light in a subtle but impactful way. It wasn't scandalous or flashy. It was elegant, sophisticated, but it was definitely not invisible. "That dress was made for you," the saleswoman said when I came out of the dressing room. I looked at myself in the mirror, and for the first time in years, I genuinely liked what I saw. Not because someone else approved, but because I felt like me. A more confident, more celebrated, more awake version of myself. "I'll take it." I spent the rest of the afternoon at the salon. Not the classic, conservative one I went to with Daniel, but a modern and fresh one that Clara had recommended to me years ago. I cut my hair about 5 centimeters, added layers that framed my face, and had it styled in a way that enhanced my natural waves instead of straightening it completely as I had been doing. "You look 10 years younger," said the stylist. "And much more you, if that makes sense." It made all the sense in the world. When I got home at 6 in the evening, Daniel was already there, with an impatient and frustrated look on his face. "Where were you? I called you 3 times. "Shopping," I replied, putting the bags in the closet. "Shopping for what?" "For the ball on Saturday." Daniel closed his eyes, as if trying to gather patience to deal with a rebellious child. "Eliza, I thought we had agreed on—" "No, you decided. I never agreed. You're not understanding the implications." "Daniel, can I ask you something? When you decided to specialize in cardiac surgery, I supported you. When you wanted to move to this apartment, which costs twice what I thought was reasonable, I accepted. When you said we couldn't have a big wedding because it wasn't professionally appropriate, I understood." He opened his mouth to say something, but I continued. "When did it become established that your professional goals are more important than mine? When did we agree that I should become invisible for you to shine? It's not about invisibility. It's about companionship, about supporting each other. Support goes both ways, Daniel. When was the last time you sacrificed something for my career?" He fell silent. Because we both knew the answer. Never. "Eliza, if you go to that ball, especially after the Hartman case, you could ruin my opportunities at the Children's Hospital. And if I don't go, I ruin mine everywhere else. Your future is already secured. You have a good job, stability. Are you listening to me? I was selected from thousands of professionals. This can open doors for me to big firms, international cases, things I haven't even imagined. And that's more important than our relationship?" The question hung in the air, and I knew that was the real question. For Daniel, my career was always supposed to take a back seat. "It's not more important," I said slowly, "but it shouldn't be less important either." "So what are you saying?" I took a deep breath. "I'm saying I'm going to that ball on Saturday, and I'm saying that if you can't celebrate my accomplishments with me, maybe we need to reconsider if this is the kind of relationship I want for my life." Daniel looked at me as if he were seeing a stranger. And maybe I was. The Eliza of the last 3 years would have kept quiet. She would have found a logical excuse to justify why he was right. But this Eliza, or maybe the original one, who had been sleeping, was no longer willing to make herself small. "You've changed," he said, with an accusing tone. "Yes," I replied, and it was for the better. That night, while Daniel worked on his laptop in the living room, I pretended to read a book in bed. But my mind wouldn't stop. I was reviewing not only the conversation we had just had, but years of small concessions that had led me here. Saturday was just 2 days away, and for the first time in a long time, I was genuinely excited to discover what the future held for me. Friday passed in a kind of tense haze. Daniel and I barely spoke, moving through the apartment like two polite strangers, temporarily sharing the same space. He left early and came back late, avoiding any conversation that might revive the topic of the ball. But I was no longer willing to pretend that everything was fine. There was something liberating about the decision I had made. It wasn't just about going to the ball. It was about reclaiming my voice, my space, my identity, the one that had been worn down little by little in recent years. On Saturday morning, I woke up with an energy I hadn't felt in a long time. Daniel was making coffee in the kitchen when I came down, still in my pajamas, with my hair messy. "Good morning," I said, pouring myself a cup. "Good morning," he replied in a cold, formal voice. "Are you still planning to go tonight?" "Yes," I nodded, as if he had expected that answer, even if he didn't approve of it. "Eliza, last chance to rethink this together. We can find a solution that works for both of us." "What kind of solution?" "You go. You stay for an hour. You greet the important people and we leave early. I'll go with you. But we keep a low profile." It was exactly the kind of deal I would have accepted a year ago. To go, but without really being there. To be recognized, but in a muted way. To have my moment, but only if it didn't bother anyone. "No, Daniel, I don't. I deserve to be there completely, not halfway. I deserve to celebrate my accomplishment without worrying if I'm inconveniencing someone or harming someone else's career." Daniel put his cup in the sink with more force than necessary. "Then you've chosen. I've chosen to value myself. If that's a problem for you, maybe we need to have a much more serious conversation about our future." He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in his eyes that I had never seen before. Respect. Not necessarily approval, but a kind of recognition that I was no longer the moldable woman he thought he knew. "Then you'll go alone." "Yes, I will." I nodded and walked out of the kitchen. 30 minutes later, I heard the apartment door close. I spent the morning taking care of myself. Not in an anxious or desperate way, but with the calm of someone who is celebrating herself. I put on a face mask. I painted my nails a bold red that I hadn't used in years, and listened to music that I actually liked, instead of the relaxing playlists Daniel liked. At 4 in the afternoon, I started getting ready. The blue dress was even more beautiful than I remembered, and my hair with the new layers fell perfectly. When I saw myself in the mirror, I saw a woman I recognized. Confident, successful, radiant. At 6:15, the Uber arrived. I was ready, not just physically, but emotionally. The Beverly Hills Hotel was dazzling, illuminated for the occasion with golden lights that made the entire building shine against the sunset sky. Elegant cars lined up at the entrance. Valets ran, and there was an energy of celebration in the air. It was when I got out of the car that I saw him. Mark Roberts was standing near the entrance, adjusting his shirt cuffs, visibly uncomfortable in his impeccable tuxedo. I knew him by sight. He was an architect specializing in social housing, and we had crossed paths a couple of times at civil rights events. But we had never really talked. He saw me too, and our eyes met in the middle of the constant coming and going of elegant people. Mark smiled. Not that polite smile of someone who vaguely recognizes someone, but a genuine smile of admiration. "Eliza Cooper?" He approached. "What a pleasure to see you here." "Hello, Mark. How are you?" "Better now," he said, and there was something in the way he said it that made me blush a little. "You look dazzling." "Thank you. You're very elegant, too. Can I confess something? I'm so nervous. These kinds of events make me uncomfortable. So much formality. So many people you're supposed to know. But I don't know them. I laughed, instantly feeling comfortable with his sincerity. I get nervous, too. In fact, I almost didn't come. Really? But you were selected for that amazing list, right? The 30 under 30. That's impressive. Did you know about that? Of course. I read the article in the LA Times about your case against Hartman Industries. It was inspiring to see someone truly fighting for immigrant workers. My dad was one of those workers 20 years ago. There was something about the way he spoke, respectful, without condescension, without political awkwardness, that deeply touched me. Thank you. Really. That means a lot. Eliza, Mark said, hesitating a little. I know we barely know each other, but did you come alone tonight? Yes, me too. And I was thinking, since we're both nervous and we came alone, maybe we could go in together, as colleagues who support each other. I looked at him closely, really looked at him. Mark must have been around 30, with dark hair and some premature gray, kind brown eyes, and a smile that seemed genuinely interested in hearing what I had to say. There was something about him that reminded me of why I had chosen to study law. The passion for social justice, the desire to change something. I'd love to, I replied. We went into the main hall together, and it was like entering a golden dream. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm light on tables decorated with white and gold flowers. An orchestra played classic jazz, and hundreds of elegantly dressed people walked around with glasses of champagne in hand. But the most surprising thing was how different I felt entering with Mark. Not inferior, not nervous, but equal, as if I belonged there. Do you want some champagne? Mark asked. I'd love some. While he went to get the drinks, I looked around and recognized several faces. Colleagues from the legal world, famous doctors, business people who were regularly in the newspapers. But instead of feeling intimidated, I felt curious, eager to meet them, to talk about our work, about the changes we all wanted to create in the city. Here you are, Mark returned with 2 glasses. And I've already discovered where the honorees' tables are. You're at table 4, and you? Table 6, right next to it. We spent the next 40 minutes circulating together, talking to different groups of people. And it was revealing to notice how different the conversations were. When I was with Daniel, I often felt like a footnote in his presentations. But with Mark, it was different. This is Eliza Cooper, he would say with genuine pride. The lawyer who just won that incredible case against Hartman Industries. Eliza, this is Dr. Marcus Carter, he would say. He's revolutionizing pediatrics in marginalized communities. Mark not only introduced me, he celebrated me. And most importantly, he really listened when I spoke, asked intelligent questions about my work. He included me naturally in every conversation. We were talking with a group of young social entrepreneurs when someone tapped me on the shoulder. Eliza, I turned around and saw Dr. Marcus Carter, one of the senior partners of the most important corporate firm in Los Angeles. I knew him by name. He was legendary in the world of business law. Dr. Carter, it's a pleasure to meet you in person. The pleasure is mine. I read about your work on the Hartman case, a brilliant strategy. In fact, I'm here with some colleagues, and we want to talk to you about some opportunities. My heart raced. An opportunity with Carter and Associates was the kind of thing that changed careers. It would be an honor to talk with you. Perfect. Are you accompanied tonight? Yes, Mark said, extending his hand. Mark Roberts, architect, and very proud to be here with Eliza. Dr. Carter shook his hand with respect. Roberts, aren't you the architect of the social housing project in East LA? That's right. Impressive work. My wife is a community psychologist and can't stop talking about the positive impact your designs are having on that community. And there was another fundamental difference. Mark didn't feel threatened when others recognized my work. On the contrary, he seemed genuinely happy for Eliza, Dr. Carter continued. How about we have lunch on Monday? I have a proposal that I think you'll be interested in." When he walked away, I looked at Mark, surprised. "That was incredible," he finished. "Do you realize how impressive that was? Marcus Carter doesn't talk to just anyone. I can't believe it really happened." "I do believe it. You deserve it. And much more." There was something in the way he said it, with total conviction, without a trace of jealousy or awkwardness, that made me see, in a flash, the brutal contrast with my life of the last few years. When dinner was announced, we went to our respective tables. Table 5 was spectacular, surrounded by other honorees, all brilliant young professionals who were making a difference in their fields. For the first time in a long time, I felt exactly where I was supposed to be. During dinner, we talked about our jobs, challenges, triumphs. It was the kind of conversation that energized me, not that exhausted me. And all the time I could see Mark at the table next to mine, making eye contact and smiling encouragingly. But it was during dessert that everything changed. "Ladies and gentlemen," the presenter announced, "the time has come to announce the award for the distinguished couple of the night, given to the duo that best represents the values of professional excellence and personal harmony that we celebrate tonight." My stomach clenched. I didn't know such an award existed, but I suddenly felt exposed. I was here without my fiancé, accompanied by someone I barely knew. "This year," the presenter continued, "the award goes to a couple who arrived separately tonight, but who throughout the event have shown the kind of support and connection that inspires everyone around them. Eliza Cooper and Mark Roberts." For a moment, I thought I had misheard. People started to applaud, and I saw Mark at table 6, as surprised as I was. "Go," someone at my table said, laughing. "You deserve it." Mark came over and offered me his hand to help me up. "I think they took us by surprise," he whispered. "Totally." We went up to the stage to enthusiastic applause. The presenter handed us an elegant trophy and turned to the microphone. "Eliza and Mark reminded us tonight that the best relationships are those where each person sincerely celebrates the other's success. Seeing them together, how Mark presented Eliza with pride, how Eliza included Mark in every conversation, how both of them shined when the other was recognized, showed us what a true partnership means." I looked at Mark, who was smiling at me with an expression I couldn't quite decipher. There was admiration, yes, but also something deeper. "Do you want to say it a few words?" the presenter asked. Mark looked at me and I nodded. "Well," he began, his voice clear in the microphone, "I have to admit that tonight I got to know Eliza more than I knew her before, but sometimes the best connections are the ones you recognize immediately." He turned to me. "Eliza, you are an extraordinary person. Your passion for justice, your intelligence, your elegance, all of it shines in a way that can't be ignored, and anyone lucky enough to be by your side should feel honored, not threatened, by your light." His words hit me like a soft punch to the chest. They were exactly what I needed to hear, but even more so, they were exactly how I deserved to be seen. I took the microphone. "Mark, tonight you showed me what it's like to be truly seen and valued, what it's like to have someone who celebrates your accomplishments instead of trying to minimize them. This award is about partnership, and you showed me today what a true partnership should be." The applause was warm and prolonged. When we came down from the stage, many people congratulated us, saying we were perfect together and that it was obvious we made a great couple. But it was when I saw Daniel, standing near the entrance of the ballroom, that everything stopped for an instant. He had come. He was elegant in his tuxedo, but his expression was one of pure shock. He had seen me go up on stage with another man. He had heard me talk about being seen, about being celebrated. He had witnessed exactly what he was losing. "Eliza," Mark said in a low voice, following my gaze. "Do you know him?" "He's my fiancé," I replied, and the word tasted strange. Oh, Mark nodded slowly. Do you want to? No, I said, surprised by my own firmness. I don't. Daniel started to approach, but I turned to Mark. Would you like to dance with me? The smile he gave me was all the answer I needed. We danced 3 songs in a row, talking about our jobs, our dreams, the little things that make life interesting. It was natural, comfortable, stimulating. It was everything I had forgotten a connection could be. Eliza, Mark said when the 3rd song ended. Can I confess something? I had seen you before at events, but you were always with him, and I always thought you looked distant, as if you were playing a role. I probably was, but tonight you're radiant, as if you were a completely different person. I'm not different, I said, feeling the truth of my own words. I'm the same as always. I just stopped pretending to be smaller than I am. And that's incredible to see. Near midnight, we decided to leave. Daniel had disappeared at some point, probably when he realized that I wasn't going to go after him for explanations or apologies. Mark walked me to the valet area, where we waited for our respective cars. Eliza, Mark said while we waited, I know you have a complicated situation to resolve, but when you resolve it, I would love to get to know you better. I really would. I looked at him, at this man who in a single night showed me what it was like to be truly valued, and I smiled. I would love that too. He kissed my hand gently when my car arrived, an old-fashioned gesture that would normally make me laugh, but tonight felt perfect. Congratulations on the award, he said, and for allowing yourself to shine. During the drive home, I looked at the trophy on the seat next to me and replayed the entire night in my mind. I had gone to the ball to prove something to Daniel, but I ended up proving something much more important to myself. I deserve to be seen. I deserve to be celebrated. I deserve to be valued. And I don't need to make myself small for others to be comfortable with my light. The apartment was dark when I arrived. Daniel hadn't returned, or if he had already left again. And for the first time in years, I didn't care where he was. I left the trophy on the coffee table, took off my heels, and sat on the sofa, still in my beautiful blue dress. I knew that difficult decisions, uncomfortable conversations, real changes were coming. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of the future. I was excited about what was to come. I woke up on Sunday morning still in my blue ball gown, wrapped in the sofa blanket. Someone, probably Daniel, had covered me during the early hours. The trophy was still on the coffee table, catching the morning light that came through the window, a golden and crystalline reminder that what I had experienced the night before hadn't been a dream. My neck hurt from having slept in an uncomfortable position, but my heart felt lighter than I had remembered in years. Daniel was in the kitchen when I got up, already dressed as if to go for a run, his typical Sunday routine. But instead of his sneakers, he was simply sitting at the table, with a cup of coffee, looking out the window with an expression I couldn't decipher. "Good morning," I said, my voice still hoarse from sleep. He turned to see me, and I noticed he hadn't slept. His eyes were red, his hair messy, his beard more grown out than usual. "Good morning," he replied with a strange calm. "How was the rest of the night?" Was there something in his tone? There was no sarcasm or reproach, just a genuine curiosity, and perhaps a little defeat, that took me by surprise. It was revealing. It was very revealing. Daniel nodded slowly, as if my answer made all the sense in the world. "I saw you, on stage. With him. Mark, he repeated. "You looked natural together." I poured myself a cup of coffee, needing to do something with my hands while we navigated this strangely civilized conversation. "Daniel, about last night." "Eliza," he interrupted gently. "Before you say anything, I need to tell you something." I sat at the table with him, bracing myself for whatever he was going to say. "After you left yesterday, I kept thinking about everything we talked about what you said, that I've never sacrificed anything for your career." He paused, swirling his coffee without drinking. "And you were right. It wasn't the conversation I expected." Then I called Clara. "You called Clara?" My best friend, who hadn't been able to stand Daniel for years, although she had always been polite for my sake. "Yes," I asked her, "when was the last time you saw Eliza genuinely happy?" My stomach clenched. "And what did she tell you?" "That she couldn't remember. That in the last few years, you seemed to be acting happy, not living it." His words hung between us. Daniel continued. "Then I went to the ball. You were there? I saw you." "I know, but you didn't see me before. I was in the parking lot for 40 minutes, outside, trying to gather the courage to go in." He laughed bitterly. "The courage to go into the event where my fiancée was being honored. When I finally went in, I saw you right away. You were talking to a group of people, laughing at something someone said, totally present. And for a moment I didn't recognize you." "What do you mean you didn't recognize me?" "You were radiant, confident, alive in a way I hadn't seen in you in years. And I realized that the last time I saw you like that was before we started dating seriously." His words hurt, because they were true. "Then I saw you with him, with Mark. And the way he looked at you, Eliza, was the way I should have looked at you. With admiration, with pride, as if you were the most fascinating person in the whole room." "Daniel, let me finish. When they named you the distinguished couple, when you went up on stage, the way you complimented each other, how he introduced you, how you talked about being seen and valued, I understood." "You understood what?" "That I spent the last 3 years trying to turn you into a smaller version of yourself, and that you got so used to shrinking that you forgot how to shine." Tears started to fill my eyes, but they weren't of sadness. They were of relief. Finally, he was seeing me. "Eliza, I love you. I've always loved you. But I think I fell in love with a version of you that I invented in my head. Someone who was happy to be my shadow. Someone who would put my dreams before hers. And now? Now I realize that the woman I really love, the real Eliza, is much bigger than the box I tried to put you in. And that if I truly love you, I have to let you be who you are, even if that means losing you." The silence that followed was dense, but not uncomfortable. It was the silence of two people finally being honest after years of not understanding each other. "Daniel," I said at last, "you're right. I made myself small. And it wasn't just because of you. I allowed it, because it was easier than fighting for space in my own life. But last night, I remembered who I was before I started trying to be who you wanted me to be." Daniel nodded, and he also had tears in his eyes. "And what does that mean for us?" It was the question I had been avoiding since the night before, but I knew it had to come. "It means we have to be honest about who we are and what we want. You want a partner who puts your career first, who is the perfect wife for a successful cardiovascular surgeon, someone who doesn't cause trouble, who doesn't make waves. And what do you want? I want someone who celebrates my accomplishments instead of feeling threatened by them. I want a partner who sees me as an equal, not as an accessory. I want to build a life where we can both shine, without one having to dim their light for the other to look good." "And you think I can't be that person?" I took a deep breath. It was the hardest question. "Daniel, you could try to be, but it would be changing to please me, just like I changed to please you. And that's not fair to either of us." He fell silent, looking at his hands. "You're right," he said at last. "I could try, but deep down, it would always make me uncomfortable for you to shine more than me. I would always want you to be a little less, to feel a little more." His honesty was a painful but necessary gift. "And you'll always resent having to make yourself small," he continued. "As you should. Then I think we know what we have to do." I stayed there, looking at the man I had loved for 3 years, with whom I planned to marry in 6 months. And I felt a deep sadness, but also an enormous relief. "I'm going to miss you," I said. And it was true. "I'm going to miss you too. But Eliza, you deserve to be loved exactly as you are. Completely. Without conditions." "You too, Daniel." He smiled. The first genuine smile I had seen in months. "Maybe we're better people than we are a couple." "We definitely are." We spent the rest of the morning resolving practical issues. The apartment, the wedding that would have to be canceled, how we would explain everything to our families. It was surprisingly civilized, almost friendly, as if finally telling the truth had released all the tension accumulated between us. "And Mark?" Daniel asked, when we were finishing dividing some things. "What about Mark? I saw how you looked at him. There was something there." I felt myself blush. I barely know him. "But would you like to get to know him better?" It wasn't a question, and we both knew it. "Yes," I admitted, "I would. He seems to be the type who's going to celebrate you, not try to change you." "That seems right." Daniel nodded. "Then you should call him." "Daniel." "Eliza, we're ending our engagement, yes, but that doesn't mean I don't want you to be happy. In fact, for the first time in a long time, I can sincerely say that I want you to find someone who completely deserves you." That afternoon, Daniel packed some things and went to live with a medical colleague, at least until he found his own place. There was no drama, no shouting, no blame. It was mature, respectful, almost kind. When he left, I was left alone in the apartment for the first time in 3 years. But instead of feeling abandoned or scared, I felt free. I took out my cell phone and looked for the card that Mark had given me the night before. He had written his number on the back with a simple message, "For when you're ready to start the next adventure." I took a deep breath and wrote, "Hello, Mark. This is Eliza. I'm ready for that conversation we mentioned." The response came in less than 5 minutes. "Eliza, it's great to hear from you. How about coffee tomorrow? I know a perfect place to talk about architecture, law, and all the ways to change the world." I smiled, writing back, "Sounds perfect. I can't wait for tomorrow." And for the first time in years, it was completely true. 6 months later, I was sitting on the terrace of my new apartment in Silver Lake, watching the sun rise over the Los Angeles mountains while drinking my morning coffee. Not the strong espresso that Daniel preferred, but my beloved sweet latte that I had always loved. The move had been both symbolic and practical. Silver Lake was not like Beverly Hills. It was more artistic, more authentic, more me. The apartment was smaller, yes, but it had personality. Every piece of furniture, every painting on the wall, every plant on the terrace had been chosen for a single reason. Because I liked it, not because it looked professionally good. My cell phone vibrated with a message from Mark. "Good morning, beautiful. Ready for today?" Today was special. Today was the official launch of my own law firm. Cooper & Associates, specializing in labor and immigration rights. After that lunch with Dr. Carter, more meetings came. More opportunities, until I knew I was ready for something bigger. To work for myself, to choose my own cases, to defend the causes I truly believe in. Nervous and excited at the same time, I replied, "Yes. Are you coming to the event tonight?" I wouldn't miss it for anything. "So proud of you." I smiled at the message. In the last 6 months, Mark had become much more than I imagined when I accepted that first coffee. He was a partner in the most real sense, someone who celebrated my accomplishments, supported me in my challenges, and he never, not for a second, made me feel like I had to be smaller for him to feel bigger. Our relationship had grown naturally, without pressure, without ultimatums. Mark was with me when I canceled the wedding with Daniel. He helped me pack my things in Beverly Hills, and he was the first person I called when I decided to open my own firm. "Are you sure?" he asked me when I told him. "It's a big risk, I'm sure. For the first time in my life, I'm building something that is completely mine." Then I completely support you. How can I help? That's how it always was with Mark. First came the support, then the practical questions. Never the other way around. I finished my coffee and prepared for what would be one of the most important days of my career. The office still smelled of fresh paint and new furniture. It was small, just me and 2 assistants, but it was mine. The plaque on the door simply said, Eliza Cooper, labor and immigration lawyer. Justice is not a privilege. It is a right. My first clients arrived at 9 in the morning. A group of women who worked in a factory in downtown LA and were being exploited by their employer. It was exactly the kind of case that reminded me of why I had chosen this career. Dr. Cooper, one of them said in Spanish, we were told that you really fight for people like us. I'm going to fight with you, I corrected. Together we're going to get the justice you deserve. The day flew by between consultations, calls, and meetings with potential clients. At 6 in the evening, the guests for the inauguration event began to arrive. Clara was one of the first to arrive, with a huge bouquet of colorful flowers. My God, Eliza, she exclaimed, hugging me tightly. This place is perfect. It's totally you. Thank you for believing in me even when I didn't believe, I said. I always knew you would get here. I was just waiting for you to know it too. Mark arrived shortly after, elegant in his dark suit, a bottle of champagne in hand, and a proud smile that made me blush. How does it feel, boss? He asked, giving me a soft kiss. Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. You are, and you look radiant. For the next 2 hours, the office was filled with people. Fellow lawyers, community activists, some former clients, even Mark's architect colleagues, who worked on social housing projects. But the surprise of the night was seeing Daniel arrive. He was accompanied by a woman I recognized as Dr. Anya Chen, a resident in pediatric cardiology. They looked good together. She was calm where he was extroverted, and he seemed genuinely interested when she talked about her work. Eliza, Daniel approached me. Congratulations, the place is incredible. Daniel, what a surprise. Thank you for coming. I wouldn't miss it for anything. Sarah, this is Eliza who I told you about. Eliza, Sarah, it's a pleasure to meet you, said Anya with a firm and confident handshake. Daniel talks about you a lot, only good things, she added with a smile. It was strange, but comforting. Seeing Daniel with someone who really fit him, someone who shared his interests, who understood his pressures, who didn't feel threatened by his ambition. And how are you guys doing? I asked. Good, Daniel replied, with a lightness in his voice that I hadn't heard in years. Very good, in fact. And you? You and Mark? Also very good. He is. I paused, searching for the words. He's what I didn't know I was looking for. I'm glad for you both. You look perfect together. And you two too. We chatted for a few more minutes about work, life, and how different everything felt living from the truth, instead of trying to fit into someone else's molds. Eliza, Daniel said before walking away. Thank you. Thank you for what? For having the courage to end things when you knew it wasn't working. For forcing me to look at myself honestly and ask myself who I was and what I really wanted. You liberated me as much as you liberated yourself. His words moved me. Thank you for saying that. And Eliza, you were right about everything. You deserve someone who completely celebrates you, and you clearly found him. After he left, Mark came over with 2 glasses of champagne. How do you feel about all that? He asked, gesturing towards Daniel. Good. Really good. It's strange, but seeing him happy confirms that we made the right decision. You did. Sometimes 2 good people are just not good together. Exactly. And sometimes you find the right person at the right time in the most unexpected way. Mark smiled, clinking his glass with mine. Sometimes you go to a ball alone and end up finding not only professional recognition, but someone who teaches you what it's like to be truly seen. And sometimes you go to an event nervous and you find someone who completely changes your perspective on what a relationship can be. We drank our champagne, looking at the office full of people who were there to celebrate not only a new business, but my journey back to myself. "Speech! Speech!" Clara shouted, hitting a glass with a spoon like an impromptu microphone. Others joined in, and I had no choice but to accept the attention. "Well," I began, looking around. "A year ago, I was living a life that on paper seemed perfect, but that didn't fit me. I was trying to be a reduced version of myself so as not to inconvenience anyone, so as not to take up too much space, so as not to shine too brightly." Several people nodded, but sometimes life has a curious way of pushing us to face who we really are. Sometimes a hidden invitation becomes the key to our liberation. I looked at Mark, who was watching me with that pride that made me feel invincible. This office is not just a new professional stage. It's the decision to stop apologizing for existing, for having a voice, for wanting more than just pleasing others. Clara was radiant. I saw several people discreetly wiping away tears. To any woman here who has felt small in a relationship that was supposed to make her grow, you are enough. You deserve to be loved just as you are, without cuts, without edits, without having to shrink yourself. The applause was long, warm, sincere. When people began to disperse, I stayed with Mark on the back terrace, watching the city lights. "Penny for your thoughts," he said, wrapping his arm around me. "Thinking about how a single year can change everything. You changed everything. You changed your life. With help," I replied, leaning on him, "with a lot of help." "Eliza, can I ask you something? Do you ever regret it? Ending things with Daniel? Starting everything from scratch?" I looked at him, at this man who taught me that real love doesn't reduce, it expands. "Never. Not for a second." "Do you know why?" "Why? Because for the first time in my adult life, I'm living my own story, not being a secondary actress in someone else's story." Mark kissed me softly. "And what an incredible story it's being. And it's just beginning." "I hope so, because I want to be here for every chapter." 3 months later, we were at the same hotel plaza where everything had begun. But this time, for a completely different occasion. The Los Angeles Bar Association was recognizing me as Lawyer of the Year for my work in labor rights. Mark was by my side, elegant in his tuxedo, holding my hand while we waited to be called to the main table. "Nervous?" he asked. "A little, but this time it's different." "Different how?" "The last time I was here, I was afraid I wouldn't fit in. This time I'm nervous because I know I do fit in, and that comes with responsibility." "What kind of responsibility?" "To use this platform to make a difference, to show other women that they can build the life they want, even if it means disappointing people who would rather see them small." When my name was called and I went up on stage to receive the award, I looked out at the audience. I saw familiar faces. Clara, radiant in the front row. Some of my first clients, who were now friends. Fellow lawyers who respected my work. And I saw Daniel, sitting with Anya a few tables back, applauding genuinely. There was no resentment or awkwardness. Just the sincere recognition of someone who had known me in a past version, and was happy to see who I had become. "A year ago," I said in front of the microphone, "someone very wise told me that sometimes the best thing that can happen to us is to lose what we thought we wanted, to discover what we truly deserve." I looked at Mark, who was watching me with that expression he never gets tired of having, as if I were the most interesting and beautiful person in the room. I discovered that I deserved to be completely seen, loved unconditionally, and celebrated constantly, not for being perfect, but for being authentic. And even more importantly, I discovered that I can also offer that to someone else. The applause was deafening. After the ceremony, Mark and I walked on Santa Monica Beach, with my heels in my hand and his jacket draped over his shoulder. The sea air, the the gentle waves, the city lights behind us. Everything was perfect. "Eliza," he said, stopping suddenly. "What's wrong?" He knelt on the sand and took out a small box from his pocket. My heart stopped. "Mark, Eliza Cooper, you are the most incredible woman I have ever met. Strong without being harsh, kind without being weak, ambitious without being selfish. You shine in a way that illuminates everything around you, including me." Tears began to roll down my face. "I want to spend the rest of my life by your side, supporting you, celebrating you, growing with you. Not because I need you to complete me, but because I want to choose to build a life with you." He opened the small box, an elegant, simple ring, exactly my style. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, I could only look at him. At this man who taught me that true love doesn't reduce, doesn't limit, doesn't demand that you change, but invites you to be your best version. "Yes," I said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Mark placed the ring on my finger and kissed me right there, on the beach, with the waves at our feet and the lights of Los Angeles behind us. "I love you, Eliza Cooper. And I love you, Mark Roberts. And this time, I know exactly what that means. It means building a life where we can both be completely ourselves. It means celebrating each other's accomplishments without competition or insecurity. It means unconditional support, mutual growth, and the certainty that I will never again have to shrink to fit into the space someone assigned to me. It means, finally, being home within my own life. 6 months later, we got married in the Huntington Botanical Garden, surrounded by family and friends who loved us, not despite who we were, but precisely because of it. Clara was my maid of honor, of course. Daniel and Anya came, also engaged, and it was comforting to see that we had all found our right place in the world. When we exchanged vows, I didn't promise to be the perfect wife, or to put Mark's dreams before mine. I promised to be his real partner, to grow with him, to support him unconditionally, and never to let our love make me less than I am. And he promised to always see me, truly, and never feel threatened by my light, but to be warmed by it. Today, 2 years after the marriage, I am sitting in our shared office. He designs social housing. I fight for the rights of those who will inhabit it. It's a real partnership, in every sense. On the wall of my office, in a golden frame, is the Distinguished Couple trophy we won that first night at the ball. Not because we need external validation, but because it represents the moment I understood that real love doesn't require us to dim our light. It requires us to find someone who wants to shine by our side. And if you are a woman reading this, who has felt small, invisible, or too much in your relationship, you are not the problem. You don't need to be less for someone to love you. You deserve someone who celebrates you exactly as you are, who is proud of your accomplishments, who never asks you to hide. And if that means being alone for a while you find him, it's worth it. A lot. Because in the end, being alone and authentic is infinitely better than being accompanied and disappeared. The life I built is noisy, imperfect, full of challenges and constant changes. But it is mine. Completely, authentically, joyfully mine. And that, I discovered, is the only real way to live. I hope you like this story. Is there anything else I can help you with?